I practiced Zen for like 20 years, and Zen is really, people talk about enlightenment, right? And a lot of people think, well, you get enlightened and then you're just enlightened for the rest of your life. That's not how it works. You have these brief moments of insight, and then they go away. And if you don't do the work to keep coming back to it over and over and over again, you lose it. And sometimes you can never re-find it. And so it's this amazing thing that you're doing here, that we're doing here, where it's like we're coming back to this because this is important, and this is kind of life or death for us all moving forward. And what I'm seeing as I'm hearing these other gentlemen talk is that I don't know, this evolves over time. It's evolving in this moment, but I grew up being told that masculinity was one thing, that being a man meant one thing. And even I grew up in a housing project in Detroit. It was rough. And so it necessarily meant one thing there, that now that I'm in LA and much safer and more stable, it doesn't have to mean that anymore. And that is a difficult thing. And so what strikes me is that we spend a lot of time blaming people for their programming, right? I mean, I have a daughter too, and I have joked from time to time that, look, I could tell her anything and it would be gospel to her. Like, I used to joke that I could tell her that an apple is called diarrhea, and she would go to school at some point and be like, "Hey, I'm hungry. Can I have a diarrhea?" And everyone would laugh at her. And she doesn't know any better. And so, like, to a certain degree, you cannot blame people for the programming that they were given as a kid, but there's a tipping point, right, where we become men. When we become men, we have agency, and what we can blame people for is not changing, right? And I think that is an important thing to look at. And so, like, back to the question, masculinity to me, when I had to kind of like sit down and define what it was, is like it is rooted in things like courage and perseverance and accountability and integrity and protectiveness, all these things that we're talking about, discipline. And I think it is a choice. Like, who do you choose to be? Right? We are what we do. So what do you choose to do with this every day and in every moment? And so my thoughts on that operationally are these. I think that masculinity is like a hammer, right? Now, you can use that hammer to cave somebody's skull in. And I think too often, particularly right now, too many do that. And so we tend to demonize masculinity, right? Like, there are people that think that all masculinity is toxic masculinity, and so let's get rid of it. Let's push it out the door. But that is not reasonable. Like, this is a valuable thing because, like that hammer, right? Yeah, you can cave somebody's skull in it, but you can also use it to build a big, beautiful house that everybody can live in and can keep everyone safe, right? And short and sweet, my take on masculinity is that I think a real man builds the house. He stands ready to cave a skull in if he needs to, and sometimes we need to. But it is not the rule; it is the exception. And I think that the more we get together and build houses, I think that is I think that that's important. I think that changes the world.
I think that that's a really, really interesting point, especially the hammer analogy. And thank you for the visuals there, Hannibal. I appreciated it.
I
Always
got
got
I,
it on hand.
I got a
Um,
smaller keychain version here.
everyone's got their own hammer. Um, what's fascinating? I'm sitting. Look at that. There we go.
I'm feeling very left out now.
I
I have no
it's
hammer in
okay,
my
Ben.
office.
I don't have a Mjolnir. But I guess what I would just add to that is I find that fascinating. I'm gonna have to sit with that because it's such an interesting take, Rylan. But it also makes me, I guess I take that forward thinking you're really right. I think when it comes to the idea of the evolution and the courage to be open. What hits me is, there's some part of my brain that is firing an old Star Wars documentary, a bit from an old Star Wars documentary, where someone discussed what is courage and what do these movies teach young people about courage. And, when you're a child, you think of courage as like, well, people are not afraid. That's what courage is. They're just not afraid. They're so brave, they just go in and do what needs to be done. And as you become more aware of the world and older, you go, oh, no, that's not courage. Courage is being terrified and still doing it. Courage is finding, that ability, the will inside to go move through that fear, to not be crippled by that fear. And I think, that extrapolates into this idea of like many people define courage in different way. What do I need courage for? I would argue that one of the most courageous things is being open to the complexities of the things that you're discussing. Being willing to be challenged, to not get stuck in your ways, and to constantly go, am I right? Could I be wrong? Do I need to think more clearly about this? Do I need to take these words into further consideration? And can two contrasting things exist? I mean, I myself am looking right behind myself here. I have Sin City and Mr. Rogers, on equal shelves. Both of these represent really important elements of my masculinity, I would say. Others would argue they don't make sense together, but I think in today's times they do, that there is a complexity and requires exactly what you're talking about, Rylend. It requires constantly being able to go back to that well of, can I be better? Is there a way for me to improve from here?